Hi everyone, it's Catherine here from No Cashless Debit Card Australia. How you going? So tonight, the Fraser Coast Chronicle put up an article, of course it's paywalled, in regards to the cashless debit card and the break the welfare cycle new plan to get CDC holders working. Okay, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Drug and alcohol rehab and the counsellor among organisations chosen to help get people on the cashless debit card back into the workforce, and the program's biggest champion insists it's going to make a dent in the dire unemployment rates. Well, there has to be the jobs there in the first place, and for the last 3 years, isn't that what Impact's supposed to do, is get people jobs, right? And we keep seeing money being thrown in, but it's not happening, right? So, it's great that the services like the neighbourhood centre and stuff like that are getting some extra funding. But isn't it weird? It's like recycled funding. Remember the $1 million wraparound that they promised at the beginning 3 years ago for the 1 year trial, which is now 3 years in? Right? So I thought I'd read a couple of the comments that are on here because it really does need to be pointed out. Yeah, there are people who do need drug and alcohol support in Hinkler. This ongoing false assumption that the 7,000 people forced onto this infernal card all have drug problems is a load of twaddle. Right? Evidence has shown it's nothing but a stereotype gone mad. This assumption at the root of the entire problem with this program, as is Keith Pitt's myopic focus on jobs being the reason for continuing the cashless debit card, given thousands on the card in the Hinkler right now are already working. They just can't get enough hours to come off Centrelink, so they can't escape the program. At least we know it takes 2 to 3 years, an election, for Keith Pitt to even say all of this was promised at the last election too. Is Keith Pitt just recycling his promises? It appears so. Please keep in mind that the bulk of the original $1 million wraparound funding and now the bulk of the $4 million work program money has all ended up paying staff in LNP-backed businesses. We must point out that the primary Glutfest recipient is already federally funded. It's great to know that these local groups will be getting their existential income, so their survival in these troubled times is assured. But you who who isn't getting help out of poverty? Families and low-income workers Keith forced onto cards, and Centrelink-dependent recipients Keith has forced onto the program, who have to make do with the $6 a week CPI increase. In a region that is number 1 in Queensland for homelessness and youth suicide, with no job creation program to speak of thanks to the tenure of Mr. Can't Deliver, Keith isn't breaking any welfare cycle, he's just breaking people on Centrelink payments. Right, that was Amanda left that comment. So Shelley Bellyfield chimed in and said when she was up here doing her evaluation, which the government chose not to use, she says, I met plenty of employed people on the CDC doing field work up there, as the card applied to underemployed too. This demonising of people in need of Social Security must stop. It's inhumane, counterproductive. A tiny percentage of people on Social Security have alcohol and drug consumption problems. The CDC provides an expensive illusion of effective governance, but the only jobs generated through it have been for contracted financial services sector interests and government bureaucrats. Right? A couple of people chimed in, if you don't like being on the card, get a job or apply for a job. And I pointed out to that person, parents in this region, many of them have jobs that are on the card and they can't get off due to them being receiving their family tax payments. That person actually apologised and said, sorry, didn't know family tax payments were paid on the cashless debit card. That's the first person who's jumped to get a job to actually apologise. All right, but one of the best comments on here so far was from somebody called Robin Clear to Lens. Absolutely rubbish. My son has a good job and he's still on the stupid thing. My best friend has a good job and is still stuck on the stupid thing. Give me a break. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, rolling them out to people with no history of abuse and to those who have a job and receive little from Centrelink. You want them off it, you better start making more jobs. When so many shops are closing down or have closed and now sit empty with huge rents. Right? In every card region, shops have closed down. That makes more people unemployed. Right? Then you've got one here, Andrea Bogart. Get them lazy bludgers back into the workforce. And I'm talking about the bludgers that make any excuse to sit at home and not work. This comment annoys me. Right? Because there is a percentage of the population who will never work. It's not because they don't want to work. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they don't fit into the perception. They walk into a place, they've tried their best, they've put on their best clothes, and they don't pass the 15-second test. Or they might have slight intellectual impairment, or they might be super shy. So as much as they try, right, they're not lazy, they just don't get a look in. Because they're written off the minute someone looks at them or the minute they open their mouth. There's a percentage out there like that will never have jobs because they're just not deemed employable. And our system is actually designed to be able to cope with that percentage of people. It's not very many people at all, you know. But it's the nasty way that it's always touted, the lazy bludgers. And it's like, and then somebody got defensive and said, oh, I said the bludgers, right? Because Amanda Tesla Sharing said, I believe 99% who aren't lazy deserve help to get back into the workforce. And this person goes, oh, I said bludgers, get it right. You know what I mean? And Amanda said, yeah, that's right, 2% people, you know, and it's like, there is a myriad of reasons why people don't have confidence, don't have the ability to communicate well, right? Mental health issues, all sorts of problems, all sorts of barriers, you know, and they're not given a chance. You know, I don't get it. Anyway, so I've posted the article here. If people on the card, especially families, I encourage cardholders to go and have their say on this post, right, for sure. Because Keith Pitt needs to get a little bit of a wake-up call. I'm very appreciative of the parent who put up that post about their son being on the card and he has a good job. That's a brilliant, brilliant post. And we need more parents to step up. Excuse me. So, yeah. So, Fraser Coast Chronicle, and the headline is Break the Welfare Cycle. Right? As if getting a job's going to save you. They've proved it doesn't. But again, they're going back to the old thing of people on Social Security all have drug and alcohol problems. Painting that stigma all over again. And it's just crap. And it has to stop. Right? I'm so sick of everybody on a card up here has been branded a drug addict. When every person I've assisted on the card anywhere around the country, not one of them has been a drug addict, right, or an alcoholic. They have been parents, single parents, coupled parents, right, single women mainly, right, some with kids, some without kids, but none of them have had addictions, but they're branded druggy. Keith Pitt needs to really... He doesn't deserve his seat. Get rid of him. If he just looks at half of the population of his constituency as drug addicts, he needs to go. Right? He obviously has no idea what he's put his community through in the last 3 years. And he doesn't care. We're back to branding people drug and alcoholics. We're back to branding them lazy. Right? There's a lot of issues up here that are a lot of barriers to getting jobs. Nobody can get full-time $100,000 a year jobs. And that's the only way to get clear if you're a parent of the Centrelink system as a whole, is to get a job that pays $100,000 a year, full-time, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And they're not out there. They're not out there, you know? And the casualised gig economy workforce still keeps people on the cashless debit card. Okay, guys. So I just thought... I'd come on here and mention it. Go and leave your comments on the Fraser Coast Chronicle page, right? If you're on the card, if you're not on the card, if you're working, you're on the card. If you're a parent of somebody who's on the card, go and leave your comments. Because as we head into the election, right, I really would like to see families of card holders come out and stand up for these card holders and say, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. Like that person there. The son's working, has a good job, but is still on the card. Their best friend is still on the card. Right? Yeah, Brittany. Centrelink workers think the same. I had a lady from Centrelink say, oh, you're on the card. And this is it. Stigma. We want to highlight the stigma that's not deserved. And this is thanks to Keith Pitt. Right? And he thinks at the moment, you know, this $4.7 million that's been given to the neighbourhood centre, Impact got theirs a couple of weeks ago. They've given it to a group in Kalgoorlie because it's coming from a $30 million fund. But what gets me is Impact is a job agency. They get paid to help people get jobs. Then last year they got $556,000 split between the neighbourhood centre and Impact. That went on staff wages for indue staff, for 4 new staff, right? The so-called $1 million wraparound funding never turned up. And now you've got this $4.7 million for the neighbourhood centre. That's going into a lot of services that the neighbourhood centre already supplies, which is good for the neighbourhood centre. But they're back to, oh, another jobs program. Well, for me, they've just thrown another $4.7 million into Impact as well. Impact's a job agency. So they're getting paid 3 times now. That to me is wrong. You know, meanwhile, there isn't any more jobs being created in the region as shops shut down, right? And because of some people in the region's personal choices regarding certain pandemic medical health issues, there are people that have lost their jobs going on a cashless debit card now because of their personal choices, right? Yeah. It drives me nuts that Keith's going to come out this election and he's going to be demonising constituents all over again, right, to get support, to keep the card, so he can stay in government and roll it out to the whole country, right? You know, Centrelink staff have no right to be judging anybody and treating people like crap. And as Brittany said here, she was treated like shit, you know, and you had every right to go off your tree, Brittany. You know, it's disgusting. And no wonder, I mean, you've got the housing crisis that came with COVID, but prior to that, it became very evident early in the piece, the barriers to getting housing on InduCard in this region, after people were losing homes due to not being able to pay rents, right? 40% of people that have been put on the cashless debit card now live outside cashless debit card regions. Mainly because idiots like him keep it so the community is against you because of the stereotyping. You can't get anywhere. You can't get anywhere. And I can remember one employer who got $8 million in government funding, right? And I had a go at him and I said to him, so what, will you employ somebody on a cashless debit card? Because he was always banging on about it. And I remember saying, but I bet you won't give anybody a full-time job to help them get off the card. You'll employ them casually and burn through them and use them up, but you won't let them get off the card by giving them a full-time $100,000 a year job. You know? It's just disgusting. So the fight's on, guys. So, as I said, I'm looking for volunteers in the Hervey Bay, Maryborough area. If people want to contact me, I'm asking for card holders and card holders' families to tell us the stories and come and post on the page. Go and leave comments on articles like this by the Fraser Coast Chronicle, right? Start letting Keith Pitt know what he's done to your family in the last 3 years while your family members have been forced onto this card. You know, it's time to speak up, guys. Don't let them get away with it. He needs off his perch and out and gone, right? Jason Skanes, ALP, is the candidate for Hinkler. Let's get behind him and get him in and get this card gone. ALP will scrap the card, right? We just got to get him over the line. We need to get rid of these LMP parasites, privatisation and selling off our kids, selling off Australians to private company. No, no more. We're not for sale. Okay, we're not for sale, and we're not here to be called a drug addict and alcoholic when we're not. Simple as that. You know, and when you look at people that have been despondent, that have never been able to just walk out of school and get a job, and they've been trying and trying and trying, and then to lump on them that they're lazy or they're just bludgers, right? You're not educating yourself into the intricacies, the barriers, the mental health aspects. There's so many reasons why some people will never be employed. Because they don't fit into society's little box. They don't look right. They don't speak right. They don't walk right. They just don't fit. And it's not fair. But I've met families like it in the past, and it's not that they didn't want to work, they just couldn't get a foot in the door. Right? And they would spend their lives broke, but they would do anything for anybody else, and if you got them to help you to do something, they would work their asses off. Right? They just couldn't get paid employment. It's disgusting. I'm over Keith Pitt constantly demonising and using the media to denigrate and demonise the people in the Hinkler electorate and across the country that are on social security and the people that they've forced onto the cashless debit card. Vilification of Australians on centrelink and social security payments has to end. It's got to stop. All right, guys, I say good night, and we'll chat again another day. See ya.